G'day there, Aussie Stern here, country Victorian gamer of Star Wars Armada, Star Wars Legion, X-Wing, Dystopian Wars, Flames of War, Team Yankee, Battletech and many other games. First off, sorry, apologies that I haven't been online lately, but it is what it is and life does happen. Today I have started compiling a set of videos from my last game adventure up in Bendigo at Half Inch Games, whereby I played Star Wars Armada with a friend of mine, Chris, and I played with my semi-brand new Zann Consortium fleet that I have painted in previous channels. If you are interested in having a look at those models, take a look here. And against me, I came up against Chris's MC-40 fleet with Madine. No, skip it. Go back. I came up against Chris's MC-40, and we had General Madine as his fleet commander. He also had a number of other things. So let's go and have a look at the fleets in questions. Right now you are seeing my fleet, which comprises of a Keldarby cruiser. On it I have my Admiral, which is Jarrett Skies. I also have on it the End of Days title, which allows me to get a second ordnance slot. I have also got super heavy concussion missiles, which means that I had to drop my squadron value a little bit. I also have ordnance experts. I have also got a number of other bits and upgrades for it. My second ship, I have a Marauder Salvo. With this one, I went with the Saverick title, which means that if I'm going speed 0 or 1, and I shoot once out the front arc, means that I can shoot with an extra 2 dice. Now it's already got a base value of 3 red dice. Added 2 dice means I'm up to 5. To it, I've also included a spinal armament, which gives me 6 now red dice out the front. I've also added Savage. That allows me to get a reroll on a additional dice if I have one of my defense tokens already consumed or exhausted or removed. My last ship I've got is an Action for Transport. With it, I've got on it just some bomber command and some other basic stuff, projection experts, to share some shields around, hopefully to equal it out. For squadrons, I have a number of the crack fighters. Obviously, they don't look like crack fighters. They are actual Fang fighters. I am still waiting for my supply of those to arrive. I also have some bombers, the new gunship blast boats, skip ray blast boats, but you'll see that they are quite good, but you have to get them into position. I also have on the field Dengar to give him some added boost to counter. On the flip side, we have the MC-40 with Crix Madine. He's also got expanded hangar bays, which increases his already considerable hangars by 1. He's got the Condor title, which allows him to do more activations via his abilities. Boosted comms, a few other little bits and pieces for his main ship. He's also got 2 escort frigates. Now these escort frigates are pretty much set up the same, with basically both of them having expert shield techs, I believe. One having Ezra on it, the other one having Admiral Drayson in it. Both very good ships. The last one that he has is a typical MC, a medium transport with the actual boosted comms to hand out those, the comms net to hand out tokens to his other ships. For his squadrons that are significant, he's got 5 X-Wings. To that he also has Biggs, Janice Orr, and Luke Skywalker. And now I'm going to do some very fast forward shots of the actual play and talk to you about what I did, what he did, and we'll go from there.
So Chris won the bid with a total bid score of 394 points versus mine at 397. He forced me to basically choose what I was going to do for his missions, and so I had to choose the least worrisome out of them, which was precision strike. We then moved on to doing our actual setup, and in this way we firstly put out all of the terrain, obviously, and then we started deploying. I firstly deployed my Marauder artillery somewhat in the center. Then Chris on the other side deployed one of his Nebula B escort frigates, relatively 1/4 down on the far side from the top, and then I put down as my second activation my Action 4 transport. He then deployed a medium transport. Then we decided to deploy, let's get some fighters out. So we both activated 4 of our fighters. Side note, I kept my skip ray blast boats inside the Action 4 transport, which had rapid launch bays, so hoping they would get a bit quicker closer. He then also put down some more fighters when it came time to deploying, after he deployed his MC-40 and I deployed my Keldabi, and then we got on to the first round of movement. The first round, obviously, if we're all both going speed 2, we wouldn't be getting into any sort of action on the first round itself. So it was a case with me to get some tokens ready for future rounds. With the Keldabi, I basically selected for my command a concentrate fire. I then, with the Action 4, just kept a squadron, and for my actual Marauder I had a navigate. I then, on my subsequent turns, will change them around as needing, but at this stage, with everything moving to, I just wanted to get them into a position so that the next turn, when he starts moving, I should get into some far range action shots. When we played this game, we were at Bendigo, and unfortunately in the background they had a Lorcana tournament happening, which is why I'm having to dub over all of the actual clips that I have run through. So with all the movements that I'm doing at the moment, I'm just slowly jinking to start to keep the front arcs on everything pretty much facing towards the enemy fleet. Other than his medium transport, everything is pretty much facing my force as well. His medium transport is pretty much wanting to slide behind everything, seeing it's the token sharer. And obviously he doesn't want to get that MC-40 too far close into range of my more capital ships at this stage, because his main advantage is going to be with the fighters. We then move to fighter stage, where we're just slowly moving up. All my fighters, other than the Skip Ray Blast Boat, has a speed of 4. His also have speed of 4. So we're just positioning where we need to go in preparation for round 2. So round 2, we are now starting to get closer. Obviously I have nothing in range yet with my Marauder, so I'm just sort of slowly moving it forward, chucking another token on, which in this case is a Concentrate Fire. So now I've got two tokens on it, and I'm going to use the Navigate token to come down to speed to 1. Basically keeping out of range of his vessels for the most part before he moves into my range. He's activating his MC-40 up the top and stacking another token on. I'm then revealing my Keldavi, which I'm reinforcing my shields on the sides at this point, and moving it up into position, and then with the concussion, super heavy concussion missiles, I am going to actually put out an ignition point. So with the rules of it, I can shoot out the front, the side, any of those arcs. So I'm expecting that Nebula B to come pretty close to that token in the next round. So that's where I'm going to start off. He's now going to activate his Nebula, and currently he's only got me able to shoot in the front arc. I'm not quite far enough around to get a double arc yet. He's going to take a few pot shots at me, which is normal, but there's not going to be too much that I'm going to worry about at this stage. I am going to attempt to do a salvo. He did manage to knock out one shield on the side, but I managed to attempt to roll back, but seeing we're at long range, he just used his evade token to just evade it away, cancel it. And then he had to decide where he was going to move that nebula. He had two options. One, he could try and move directly into that location or come to the side. He decided to go straight into it, which was handy for us. Myself, I was sort of a little bit stuck at that point in time that I couldn't decide what to do, so I used my pass token to force him to do a second activation, which was his medium transport, and as a result of that he had to move very much around his Nebula B, his other Nebula B, to avoid a collision, putting it a little bit out of position. He ended up colliding with it and it went basically straight back to where it was. I then activated my action for transport, and seeing I had comms net on it, I passed a concentrate fire, a second one over to the Keldabi, because I of course used the first one to do the ignition. I then tried to figure out where am I going to go. There was a couple of asteroids in that location that was going to be a bit annoying for me, and I had to just basically figure out, using the actual clicks and that, where I wanted to position myself enough so I get advantage from the terrain in front of me, and then hopefully be able to run over it next turn. At this point I'm still at speed 2, and as you can see in the next subsequent round, that this is where that Action 4 did get into a lot of trouble, being up on its own, up in the top flank. Now Chris is activating his other Nebula B. There's not much in range of it at the moment still, so that will move a little bit forward. And start making its way heading towards the Keldabi. I then moved my fighters around just to bring in some close protection to my Keldabi. Obviously with the Admiral special rule, I can actually treat them as rogue when they are activated right next to me. So he has moved a few fighters, and now I can use my back fighters to come in and do a little bit of a attack and tie up a few of them. Seeing they're all rogue now, and there I got a couple of hits in. He's still not yet in range of Biggs, because Biggs is still a fair bit back, so I was able to get a few strikes in. Came in, now I've got swarm ability with Dengar. That gives me a couple of more shots, getting it down, but now I'm fully engaged with 2 squadrons up there. He can start bringing in his stuff. Obviously he cannot shoot with them yet, seeing none of his things are rogue, but it makes next turn quite problematic. Third round begins. First off, well, the Keldabi. I really wanted to start utilizing it. So obviously I have to do the ignition attack first, but I also have a lovely squadron token from my commander, so I'm going to use it. I've moved one fighter up to take on another group of fighters, getting 2 damage. However, Janor is in range, so Janor was able to utilize her special ability to brace it down to 1, giving it a little bit. Then my second one come in and the same thing happened, but now it's a case that I've got Biggs that I'm dealing with as well. Seeing Biggs is now in range. I did forget that I did have the ability to re-roll some of these dice through my special Urson Fell, but Chris told me that it's only for non-attack. So I think I would have changed that choice in subsequent games to slightly different, primarily because I thought Urson Fell actually was for all attacks. My next attack is with the Marauder, and as you can see there's 6 dice, 6 red dice, all trying to hit that Nebula B frigate. And of course I get quite a few blanks. I did get 4 hits, so 3 and a crit. I decided that I couldn't really afford to spend a reroll. He took all of them on his front, reducing it to pretty much 0 straight away, because one of them was the accuracy and I basically stopped his evades. I then moved closer. He then decided to utilize his movement with his Nebula B and chose to activate some more squadrons. That then started the dogfight. So he used his Condor to activate some squadrons using his combined ability of boosted comms, expanded hangar bay, to close his fighters in, namely a generic X-Wing, Luke, and a second generic onto my Action 4 transport. He was lucky enough with the Condor special ability to attack with 2 dice of a blue and another, and he was lucky enough to keep on getting accuracies, which stopped me being able to utilize my actual scatter. Made it rather difficult in many ways. And as you can see, pretty much when Luke came in, he attacked me and was able to knock out my Action 4 transport before I even got a chance to get the skip ray blast boats into action. He then moved the Condor just ever slight jink around the back. Then it came time for me to actually do some damage to him, utilizing 4 black dice. The heavy concussion missile against his Nebula B down at the foreground. I managed to hit 3 single hits and a double. He then decided to use his evade to force me to re-roll one of them, and unfortunately for him I still got 1 hit, so he lost quite a lot of his shields out the front. He did use a brace to brace it down to 2 hits rather than 4, but then I had my side shot, which he then also got 2 damage. He then lost a bit more on his shields and used his redirect to shift 1 to one of the other sides. I then moved my Keldabe up to face the other Nebula B simply because I didn't want to hit that asteroid. Unfortunately, as you can see, my shield token just crossed the actual terrain, so I did take some damage from that, which is unfortunate. But seeing he already activated, I just took the damage and flipped it over when I could, because it was a loose shields. He then activated the Nebula B that I just hit. Unfortunately for him, for Chris, I had successfully moved out of front arc and was only in his side arc now, so he only had one shot against me. And because I had nipply tied my line of sight behind the asteroid, meant that he had to reduce his attack by 1 dice as well, meaning that he could only hit me with 1 red. He then moved his Nebula B, his medium transport, and then while using his medium transport with the squadron command, he basically started doing a few dogfights against me. He also then used his Nebula B, doing some flak attacks against my fighters that were all in front of the Nebula B. This is the one on the far side of the Keldabi that's currently hidden, causing a few bits and pieces of damage. And this is when I realized that Urshel Fen, upgrade card, her ability to actually stop damage from attacks was misread by me. It actually is stop damage taken from things that are not attacks, namely strategic, ruthless strategist, or even mithril. So yeah, it caused me some angst that I spent points on someone that wasn't going to be too helpful, but it's a learning curve. He then moved his Nebula B right into the ball of all the actual fighters, allowing me to move my fighters out of the way. He was then at the point where I had my Marauder. I can actually activate it, which I did with squadrons. I did some flak attack with them, with the Marauder, and we were able to do a little bit of dogfighting, but at the end of the day he already scored 2 actual victory points while I was still on 1 at this point in time. Into round 3, I believe. At this point, I still had my other ignition token that I had deployed. And this time I attacked the other Nebula, which caused a lot of damage to it, losing him quite a few shields and gaining me another actual victory token. I wasn't too worried about the Nebula that was behind me at the time. I was more a little bit concerned with this one on the side because of the fact that my Marauder was going to pretty much be very damaged if I don't get it moving soon. So I was lucky enough to basically score 4 hits on him from both the actual hit of the concussion missiles as well as the normal broadside, and I was able to then maneuver around to the back side of the actual Nebula B, making it slightly out of range for his other Nebula B, but also out of the side arc of the top Nebula B, which was handy. He activated his squadrons via one of his ships. I think it might have been the actual Nebula. He also had the ability to move. After performing his attack against my Marauder, did take another damage after mitigating a few of his dice and utilizing quite a bit. Ended up needing to take 2, which then he promptly flipped 1 over, causing me to get another face up and also a victory token for him. I did do a salvo back, which caused him 1 damage, and then he proceeded to unfortunately lose his Nebula B because it ran into me. So luckily for me, my Marauder is now free, but heavily damaged, and with the Nebula B behind him coming up to it, the dogfights occurring, this was going to be one of the very much decisive rounds. Had to do a battery change for my camera at this point, so it did move around a little bit. We were getting some damages on that, on those ships. The Marauder, I needed to get it out of the way, so I activated it first. I decided to do a couple of flak attacks on the left-hand side, and then on the right try and shoot a side shot out to the Neb. Didn't cause too much damage. Did 1 or 2 damages to the flak, to the fighters. I was successful in maneuvering it slightly out of range, but because of everything else, it meant that I ended up landing on the debris field, which gave it a single arc attack by that Nebula B on the back, but on the other hand it caused me to take a damage card again. Now he moved his medium transport very close. I then had my Kildabe. It didn't have, unfortunately, a ready token to shoot, but his other Nebula activated as we were still going through the round, trying to shoot up the tailpipe of the Marauder. He did do a couple of flak shots, but because he couldn't shoot very well, he decided to use his heavy fire zone to actually take quite a bit of flak and move slightly out of the way of the Kildave for the subsequent round. He then had his MC-40 activate, which then allowed him to maneuver Biggs, Luke and everyone else into combat now with my dwindling fighters. I still had Dengai at the time, and I believe 2 of the crack fighters, but they were slowly being whittled down. And of course General Draven was on the actual other cruiser, which meant once it got into range of my unique squadrons and his unique squadrons, he ended up getting advantages there. All in all, his fighters were getting in close with the Marauder and basically started picking away at what was left of the Marauder. It survived a bit. It survived some dice because he, rather than deciding to give me more damage card, he decided to force me to flip over my already existing damage cards, which was handy. It meant that it survived another couple of attacks. His Condor had a side shot, not so much a front shot, but a side shot into my Kildare, and then he moved it onto the station after doing some long range flak, and was able to repair one of his damage cards. I, on the other hand, was still getting a fair bit of damage from everywhere. And it was only getting closer and closer to the end for my forces. Seeing I was still rogue at the start of the fighter stage, being so close, I decided to move and try and sort of help Dengar out a little bit by taking on a few of those fighters. I managed to make him use Janors again and Biggs to transmit some of his damages elsewhere. I also managed to eventually knock out some of his fighters. Very seriously outgunned, but seeing he pretty much didn't need them as much anymore as long as he had Luke and also Biggs, it meant that there's not much I could do to stop it. At this point, we were at the final round. My first activation was naturally with the Kildare. I threw out some at the Condor and also wanted to see if I can get a double strike. Not quite in the angle, unfortunately. So I decided to take a pot shot with just the front. Very small dice amount, but he was able to take some on his shield. His front shield of the MC-40 is very strong, but once you get into the side arc, it does get a little bit more damage. The Kildare arcs are very narrow in the front, which meant that I was able to do a double arc on occasion. And then I was successful in moving my Kildare right in front of that MC-40, taking advantage of the station to repair, but also taking advantage of the fact that I now blocked his MC-40 from firing at my Marauder. So rather than use his MC-40, he decided to activate his escort frigate and again shoot me up the tailpipe. He had to drop a dice because of shooting through terrain, but on the other hand he had a concentrate firepower. He was able to do another damage to it. At this point I believe I was only on 2 hulls. He then snaked around, moved aside. He was also, with his special title, I believe able to activate his fighters afterwards. And they did bombing runs into the Marauder, which at that point in time meant that I had another damage and very little shields left. He then took a few more pot shots and at the end of it, gone. Pretty much then it was all left was my Kildabe just weathering the tide. He shot a lot of his ships at me. There weren't too much more. He did get a few more victory points. So by the end of the match, he had something in the tune of 7 victory points to my 3 victory points. It made for a very interesting match and very enjoyable one. But I think I would change the fleet up slightly next time that I play him with this fleet. Maybe change up some of the ships and change up some of the actual upgrade cards.
And that's it for my game. It was a very good game, although I did end up losing, primarily by victory points than anything else. My main highlights out of it was, yeah, throwing out those like 5-6 black die sets like into long range is really, really powerful. There is no mechanic that I know that can do that as well. Obviously, we've got onagers that do have that further activation of being able to shoot out further. However, I don't have an onager yet. I really should look at getting it. I do think in many ways that when we get the wave 3 stuff for Zann Consortium, which includes the Aggressor Destroyer, it will have another ignition system in it that will take it out to that long extreme range area and be quite devastating, I believe. I also think the Vengeance frigate for Zann will also come out in that wave 3 rollout by Star Wars Nexus, and I think in many ways it will be very much a blast boat that you want to keep at long range. His fighters, that combination of Biggs and Luke with Jan as well is very devastating. I think because I lost the bid and I had to choose from his missions, he very much tailored his missions to be very much fighter orientated, like the choice between having the fighter assault, choosing the one that basically gives you point every time that you actually flip a damage card up. It's all very devastating with Luke just being able to shoot straight through shields and just treat it as nothing. That was so super powerful. But anyway, please like, please subscribe, please leave a comment if you're interested. Check out my other clips on YouTube. I am currently working on some Battletech stuff at the moment, some Lyrans, including this little beastie. And still continuing my Kellhounds. I also have been working on some more vehicles for my Battletech, and hope to get some more terrain happening in the not so distant future. But for now, from Muzzy Sterner, thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the table next time. Bye for now.